Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 15, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week, so let's crack on. First one is Neuralink. Now these are always slightly strange updates. This is Pager. Pager is a 9-year-old macaque monkey, and Pager has a neural implant. So this is a brain-computer interface. These are little wires that go down into in this case, the motor cortex. Pager has been playing a game for a while where he twiddles a little kind of joystick, and every time the dot on the screen hits a block, gets a little bit of banana smoothie through the tube. Eventually they disconnected the joystick. Pager thought he was controlling the actual blob, but actually wasn't. It was just purely the thought of controlling the joystick. So therefore they completely disconnected it, and now Pager, as you see, is playing Pong purely with his mind. So the bat on the right hand side of the screen as you're looking at it is actually controlled just by Pager's brain. Weird, slightly interesting, but also this is potentially the future for bringing movement back to people with paralysis, etc., etc. So that's kind of neat, kind of creepy at the same time, but yeah, check it out. Now this is kind of strange as well. So this is a platform called Venue, and this is a streaming movie service, or a fledgling streaming movie service. Now, why is this different from everything from sort of Now TV to Peacock to Netflix, etc.? Well, this has got a camera built into it. So the camera looks at the people looking at the TV, and therefore says, right, there are 6 people, you need 6 tickets to watch this film, and therefore you need to pay 6 times to watch the movie. So that's how this works. So it's trying to behave a little bit like the cinema, to guarantee more profit, essentially, for watching the film. Now, clearly this is not really something that a consumer really is going to get much use out of, because 6 people in a room, they're going to have to charge 6 times more. But very strange. This basically is if you lift the lid on this one, it's a can of worms really, because which movie studio is going to give their movies to this, which consumer is sitting in their house is going to want a camera or always looking at them, recording who comes in and out of the room, etc., etc. So an interesting investigation, should we say? But I'll be surprised if this one survives. But you know, lots of ways of trying it. Corona update. Haven't done one of these in a long time. So this is a group of scientists in the Netherlands, and they're trying to figure out how to make more accurate home testing. Now, I don't know whether you're up to speed on your corona tests, but if you have a lateral flow test, which you can generally having a little stick, you can take home, and it gives you a relatively accurate response. If you then have something called a lamp test, then they're more accurate, but they need temperature to be very highly controlled to actually get the right results. So clearly nobody's got one of those at home. So the scientists, as what you're staring at right now, is they basically repurposed a Nespresso capsule. Now it's not quite as cool as it sounds. It doesn't actually go into your Nespresso machine. It essentially just boils away in a pot, as you can see in the top right corner there. However, the kind of cool thing about this one is you've got the little tubes that you stick in the top, and there is a special, the little white stuff you see in here is a very sort of special material that regulates temperature basically. So that's what happens, and the color of the juice inside basically goes different color. That's it. So the reason I thought it was interesting is what else have we got around the house that can be reused, repurposed, and all those sorts of things. So you've got things like light bulbs which emit certain amounts of heat, or toilets that release water at certain times and therefore can be used for water flow and all sorts of stuff. So what else have we got around the house that can be repurposed for science, is where that was coming from. The Tobii Eye Tracker, Eye Tracker 5. So this is on the face of it, a computer peripheral, gaming peripheral that allows you to control part of the game using your eyes alone. So you would still use your keyboard or a joypad, something like that, but you could essentially look around the game and it would follow your eyes. So in certain games you can, for instance, aim, or other like flight simulators, that sort of thing, you can actually look around the cockpit and lean in, lean out, and it will actually zoom things in and out for you. So that's kind of neat on its own. I thought the really interesting thing was actually they use this thing called Mobilytics, which will heat map and show how pro gamers use certain games or play certain games. And therefore, if you're a beginner gamer trying to play League of Legends, for instance, then you can actually see how a pro gamer would be looking around the screen, reacting against certain situations. You might find that they look at the mini-map more than you do. They might find that they're looking around the screen for intruders, whatever. So I thought that was really interesting about basically using the heat maps and the eye tracking of experts to improve other people's games. And then you might also find this for even Photoshop, or you might currency traders or something like that. Yeah, very interesting. So if you want to use this, then go and have a look at the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. Yeah, there's one of these every so often. This is all about bias. So this is a UK operator, and I do know who it is, but out of politics I probably shouldn't say who it is. But basically what happened is they were checking, they had a recent software update to their checking in system, and as people were checking into the flight, what it was doing is anybody who was classed as a miss, i.e. not a Mrs., a miss was classed as a child. So this was clearly somebody had just made a massive assumption on the data side of it. Now what this really meant was anybody who was checking on the flight as a miss was classed now as 35 kilos rather than 65 kilos. When the flight was about to take off, actually they found out it was 1.2 tons, metric tons, too heavy, because they were miscalculating everything just because of a bias in the actual coding, essentially. So why is this important? Well, in 2003 there was an Air Midwest crash that killed, I think, all 21 people on board. And the primary, after the investigation, they found that it was actually overloaded because of basically they miscalculated the actual weight of the aeroplane. So this sort of bias, yes, you could basically be miscalculated from a video camera if there was certain sort of bias, but also this sort of stuff can kill you. So that was caught, has now been changed, but just shows you those assumptions can creep into software, can actually have a life or death situation. This one's slightly weird to explain, slightly hard to explain, but so this is using the infrared heat, essentially radiation from a palm, to be used to reveal an encrypted message. Now, it's a little bit tricky, but essentially what happens is you've got certain materials which have got infrared absorbent material on it, and then you can dope that slightly so that it's more absorbent or less. And if you put your hand next to it, the heat from your hand will be absorbed or radiated slightly differently, and therefore will actually reveal, possibly under an infrared camera, a message in a piece of physical, I don't know, substrate. So why is this kind of interesting? Well, what it allows you to do is if you have a certain gesture, you can also then detect on the material whether that gesture, so for instance if you do a full hand and then you do say 2 fingers, or if you do 1 finger, whatever it is, then it can actually detect that difference in the actual radiation. So therefore you can actually have a physical password essentially that can reveal something. Very strange, but it's a new interesting way of potentially having touch-free identification. So this is, you don't have to touch anything, you don't have to put your fingerprint scanner. You could potentially go into a shop, just waft your hand, do your funny little thing, and it will then go, oh yeah, I sense the difference in radiation, and therefore it's you. I will let you pay for the Mars bar, whatever it is. So kind of weird, but also just interesting how we're sort of advancing this. What else can you do to identify yourselves without touching anything? Finally, you can make your own creepy eye cam. So this is partly I guess, a social experiment. There's a great blog that goes behind this as well. And when I say the social experiment, it's more about, we've become almost desensitized to cameras and webcams, whereas everybody back in the day, maybe a year or two ago, used to put stickers, religiously on their webcam, and now you don't do that because you're going to use your webcam all the time. So this is a sort of a social experiment or a comment about this all-seeing eye that's there on top of your computer. And just to make you more aware of it, you can actually build this yourself. So this is based on an Arduino and a Raspberry Pi, an external camera, and it moves around obviously and tracks you, but also what it can do is it can just wake itself up. So even when the camera's not on, it can blink and just wake itself up. And as you move around, it follows you as well. And it recognizes who's on the screen as well. So it's quite good. So if you want to build one of these, then crack on, follow the link, and you can build one yourself. With that, we are done. Hopefully that was useful, and I will see you next week.